There is a version of success that announces itself. It walks in wearing the right shoes, carrying the right bag, saying the right things to the right people. It needs the room to know. It requires witnesses. Then there is the other kind. The kind that has nothing to prove because it already proved it, years ago quietly, when no one was paying attention. I have always been the second kind. My son married the first kind, and for about 30 days that was a very expensive mistake, for them. Han and grill you, welcome back. Get comfortable, grab whatever you're drinking, and remember, the people in these stories had every opportunity to do the right thing. They chose differently. Drop a comment when something hits you, and subscribe if you haven't yet. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. My name is Joseph Ibarra. I am 63 years old. I came to this country from Nigeria in 1987 with $200, an engineering degree that American employers spent 3 years refusing to recognize, and a stubbornness that my mother called a character flaw, and that I have since reframed as a survival skill. I worked every job that would have me: night security, warehouse loading, dishwasher at a Greek restaurant in downtown Cleveland, where the owner, a man named Stavros, watched me work for 4 months and then offered me a shift in the kitchen, because he said I was the only person he had ever seen wash dishes like I was trying to get them clean. I took that as a compliment. I still do. I cooked in that kitchen for 6 years. I learned everything Stavros would teach me, and then I learned the things he didn't know he was teaching me. How to run a kitchen under pressure, how to manage food cost, how to look at a dining room and know within 60 seconds whether the night is going well or not. In 1999, I opened my own restaurant, small 40 seats, West African menu in a city that was not sure it was ready for one. It was ready. It just needed someone to show up consistently and cook food worth coming back for. I did that, every day, for 24 years. We have 120 seats now. We have a private dining room. We have a chef I trained myself and a general manager who has been with me for 16 years. Last year we were nominated for a regional James Beard Award. I mention that not to impress you, but because it matters to what comes next. Hanvergro. My son Daniel is 34 years old. He grew up in that restaurant. He did homework at the corner table. He learned to count using the register. He bussed tables at 14 and cooked on the line at 19. And by the time he left for business school at 22, he knew every corner of that building. When he came back at 26, I gave him a role in the business side: vendor relationships, marketing, event bookings. He was good at it. Not great, but good. Good enough that I trusted him with more than I should have, faster than I should have, because he was my son and I confused familiarity with readiness. That is my mistake in this story, and I own it. He met Vivienne 2 years ago. She is the daughter of a property developer, raised in a suburb of Chicago, educated at schools that cost more per year than I made in my first 5 years of cooking. And she has the particular quality that very expensive educations sometimes produce: a complete confidence in her own assessments that is not always supported by the evidence. She is not stupid. I want to be clear about that. She is sharp and she is well read, and she has opinions about everything, delivered with the certainty of someone who has rarely been told they are wrong. When Daniel brought her to meet me the first time, she looked at my restaurant the way people look at something when they are deciding how to feel about it. Not rude, assessing. I noted it and said nothing. They married 8 months ago. Small ceremony which I respected. The trouble began approximately 6 weeks after the wedding, when Vivienne decided that the restaurant needed what she called a strategic repositioning. She had a presentation, actual slides. She brought them to a Sunday lunch at my house and walked Daniel and me through them for 45 minutes. New branding, different menu direction. A rebrand she described as elevating the concept, by which she meant making it less specifically West African and more generally upscale. She had projections. She had comparable case studies. She had clearly spent a significant amount of time on this, and was presenting it with the energy of someone delivering a solution to a problem that had been asked for. It had not been asked for, but I listened. I thanked her. I said I would think about it. She looked at Daniel in a way that told me thinking about it was not the response she had anticipated. 3 weeks later, Daniel came to me privately and said that Vivienne felt I wasn't taking her ideas seriously. I said I was still thinking. He said she had a lot of experience with brand strategy from her family's business. I said that was interesting. He said, and this is the part that told me everything I needed to know about where this was going. He said that Vivienne thought perhaps the restaurant had reached the ceiling of what it could achieve under its current leadership, and that fresh perspective from outside might help it grow. Current leadership. I am the current leadership. I have been the current leadership for 24 years. I built the ceiling she was describing from a 40-seat room and a borrowed kitchen knife. I looked at my son for a long moment. Then I said, Daniel, bring her to the restaurant on Friday evening. I want to show her something. He said, What are you going to show her? I said, How the kitchen works. Just come now. Here is the part I need to explain carefully because the setup matters. My restaurant operates with a general manager named Marcus who runs the floor. My chef, a woman named Adeze, runs the kitchen. My name is not on the sign outside, it never has been. The restaurant is called Buca Modern, which is what I wanted it called. My ownership is documented in every legal filing, every license, every tax record, but it is not announced. My staff know. My regulars know. The broader public, the review sites, the press coverage. It references the restaurant and the chef and rarely the owner by name, because I have never courted that attention and have never needed to. What this means practically is that a person could walk into Buca Modern and have no visible indication that the quiet man in the simple clothing having coffee at the back corner table is the person who owns every chair they are sitting in. Vivian had been to the restaurant twice since the wedding. Both times I had been working in the office or moving through the kitchen. She had seen me. She had not known what she was seeing. Honor, if you've stayed with me this far, do me one quick thing, hit subscribe. Most people never do, even when they're locked in. It costs you nothing, and it's how we keep these stories coming. Thank you, genuinely. Hongranger they arrived on Friday at 7. The restaurant was full, the way it is on Fridays. Warm and loud and smelling of palm oil and grilled fish and the specific happiness of a room full of people eating food they chose because they wanted it. Marcus met them at the door. He is a tall man, Marcus, impeccably dressed, with the calm authority of someone who has managed 100 difficult Friday nights. He greeted Daniel warmly. He greeted Vivian with a courtesy that was professional and precise. He showed them to the table I had reserved. Center of the room, good sight lines. The table I always put guests I want to pay attention to how they experience the space. I was not at that table. I was moving through the kitchen, the way I do on busy nights. Not cooking, just present, watching the flow, checking the pass. The thing I do because 24 years of doing it means I cannot help it. I was wearing kitchen clothes, simple, dark, nothing remarkable. When I came through to the floor to check on a table near the back, I passed within 10 feet of Daniel and Vivian. Daniel saw me and gave the smallest nod. We had discussed this, he knew the plan. Vivian glanced at me the way you glance at someone who works in a restaurant when you are a customer. Her eyes moved past me in under a second. I went back to the kitchen. Over the next 90 minutes, I watched them through the pass window the way I watch every table, reading the body language, the pace of the meal, the quality of the attention. Vivienne was talking more than she was eating, which is a thing people do when they are performing rather than enjoying. She was looking around the room, assessing again, making notes in her phone at one point, which I found interesting. Daniel was quieter than usual. He knew what was coming, and he was, I think, beginning to feel the particular discomfort of a man who has agreed to something and is now watching it unfold. At 8:30, Marcus brought them to the kitchen. This is something we do for certain guests. A kitchen visit. A chance to see the operation. Adeze was plating a tasting course, moving with the precise efficiency of someone who has run this kitchen for 9 years. The staff moved around her the way water moves around a stone, automatically, without friction. It is a beautiful thing to watch when it is working. It was working. Vivian looked around the kitchen with the expression she had worn in my dining room the first time, assessing. Then she said to Marcus, gesturing toward me where I stood at the back checking inventory, "Is that one of the kitchen staff?" Marcus looked at her for just a moment. Then he said with complete composure, "That is Mr. Ibarra. He is the founder and owner of Buca Modern. He has been running this kitchen since 1999. I want to tell you about the silence that followed that sentence. It was not long, maybe 4 seconds. But in those 4 seconds, I watched Vivian's face do something that faces rarely do in public. It lost its shape. The assessing expression, the composed confidence, the certainty, it reorganized itself entirely. Color arrived in her neck before it reached her face. She looked at Daniel. Daniel was looking at the floor with the expression of a man who made a decision he understood, and is now watching the consequences arrive exactly as scheduled. I walked over. I extended my hand to Vivienne. I said, "I'm glad you came. I've wanted you to see the kitchen properly for a while. What do you think of it?" She shook my hand. Her composure was coming back. "She is not a person who stays unbalanced for long, I will give her that," she said. "It's very impressive." "Joseph," I said. "I think so too. Adeze has been running it for 9 years. Marcus has managed the floor for 16. The two of them know this restaurant better than anyone alive, including me. I paused. It is not a restaurant that has reached the ceiling of what it can achieve. It is a restaurant that has been built very carefully over a very long time to be exactly what it is. I said it pleasantly, informatively, the way you tell someone a fact they did not have before and might find useful. Then I said, let me have Adeze send out the tasting menu. You should eat. We sat together at the corner table, my table, for the next hour. Vivienne ate. Really ate this time, not performing. The food did what good food does when you finally stop thinking about it and just receive it. By the third course, she had put her phone away. By the fourth, she had asked Adeze a question about the preparation that was genuine and curious, rather than evaluative. I watched my son watch his wife discover something, and I watched something ease in his face that had been tight for weeks. Real quick, 97% of people listening to this never subscribe, even when they're completely locked in. If that's you, now's the moment. Hit that button. It keeps the stories coming, and it means more than you know. We have not had another presentation. The slides have not reappeared. What has happened instead is something smaller and more valuable. Vivienne has started asking questions rather than providing answers. She comes to the restaurant now on her own sometimes, sits at the bar, talks to Marcus. Last month she asked me if she could sit in on a vendor meeting, just to understand how the supply side worked. I said yes. She took notes. Real ones, I think, rather than assessments. It is a different energy, and I recognize it. It is the energy of someone who has decided to learn a thing instead of judge it. That is the only repositioning I was ever interested in. Daniel and I had a conversation, just the two of us, about 3 weeks after the kitchen visit. He apologized. Not elaborately. Daniel has never been an elaborate person, which is a quality he got from me. He said he had let someone else's confidence override his own better judgment and that he knew it and was sorry. I said I appreciated that. I said that confidence is not the same as knowledge, and that the difference between the two is usually about 24 years, and a lot of very early mornings. He smiled. I said, you grew up in this restaurant, Daniel. You know what it is. Don't let anyone tell you what it isn't, he said. I know, Dad. I said, good. Now come help me with the inventory, because Adeze says the spice order is wrong again, and I need a second pair of eyes. He came and helped with the inventory. We stood side by side in the stockroom the way we used to when he was 19, and learning the kitchen and the world was still mostly ahead of him. Some things change. The restaurant gets bigger, the staff grows, the accolades come, and the years pass. And some things do not change at all. The food is still the point, the work is still the point, and the quiet man in the simple clothing at the back corner table is still, after 24 years, exactly where he is supposed to be, right where he built it. If this story stayed with you, join us by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and human stories about family, loyalty, and what people do when they think no one is watching. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.